Revealed, 3 shocking food combos seniors must avoid with eggs for amazing health transformation. Grace sat at the kitchen table, staring at the 2 forkfuls of airy scrambled eggs left on her plate. A half-eaten avocado sat next to it, the vibrant green contrasting sharply with the whites of the eggs. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through a magazine where bold headlines screamed the warnings of health experts. 3 shocking food combinations. They pointed out the culprits that could ruin her beloved egg dishes, the breakfast staple that once brought her family together. Her heart raced at the thought that perhaps these cherished meals might need to change, but how could she sever that connection to their history? Panic rippled through her mind. Memories of her late husband filled the air like lingering smoke. "You always made the best eggs, Grace," he'd tease, his laughter dancing warm in the corners of the old homestead. Each family gathering echoed with the comfort and joy that their favorite breakfast brought. Yet now, each egg became a battleground between nostalgia and the urgent need for self-reinvention. Grace wanted to reclaim her health not just for herself, but to inspire her children and grandchildren to embrace a life of wellness. After a restless night filled with anxiety, Grace sought advice from her friends at the local cafe. "You have to try chia seeds," one suggested, her voice a blend of excitement and warmth. "Or kale. You can blend it right into smoothies with your eggs." The well-meaning advice made Grace's head spin. How could she add kale to omelets? Could this be the key to enhancing her family's legacy of health? The clamor of suggestions haunted her as if they were mocking her nostalgia, drilling deep into the very heart of her cooking rituals. Before she could contemplate a new routine, Dr. Nick showed up at her doorstep. It felt like a lifetime since they last exchanged laughter, and yet his presence transported her back to carefree college days where lightness permeated everything. His genuine enthusiasm for nutrition sparked something in her. "Grace, why not embrace this change? You are a curious woman who once explored the unfamiliar," he'd said with an encouraging smile. But deep down, a voice whispered doubts. Could she really step into this new world and leave behind the warm embrace of family traditions? Just as Grace began contemplating change, her children ambushed her with hesitance. "Mom, tradition is important. Why alter what has been passed down?" The conversations turned heated, the kitchen filled with shadows of disapproval where laughter once rang. Each time they questioned her newfound enthusiasm for health, her heart tightened, caught in a vice of uncertainty. Before she could press forward, Grace discovered a tattered journal hidden in the attic, a relic of her late husband's thoughts. As she turned its pages, she unearthed his own struggles for health and knowledge, all stitched together by his love for family. Each revelation dug deeper into her, igniting a fire in her heart. She could see his dreams painted vividly within. "You can do this, Grace," his words echoed through time, pushing her back against the suffocating pressure from her children's voices. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the idea of a family dinner featuring her innovative new recipes emerged, anxiety coiled within her like a serpent ready to strike. Could she win them over? Or was family tradition too deeply embedded for them to appreciate change? With her heart racing and her resolve faltering under the weight of uncertainty, Grace realized she stood at a precarious precipice. The dinner loomed close, a moment that could either unite her family or fracture it into remnants of what once was. Would she remain steadfast in her quest, or would the very love she sought to express be met with a wall of resistance? The evening held promise, yet a storm of trepidation brewed on the horizon, leaving Grace on the brink of an uncertain future where the echoes of tradition clashed with her longing for health and unity. Grace paced the kitchen, the evening sun filtering through the window, casting long shadows over the table still scattered with remnants of her preparations. The thought of her family gathering filled her with a mixture of anticipation and dread. Would they see her new vision for their meals as a betrayal or an evolution? She gathered her newly adopted recipes, each one a blend of health and nostalgia, her heart racing with the weight of this transformation. Slicing fresh vegetables for a colorful salad, she found herself pondering the harsh words her children would likely utter at dinner. Why fix what isn't broken? They would question, their voices tinged with the weight of other family members whose faces swirled in her memory. Grace hesitated, the knife trembling in her hand as she recalled the lightness in Dr. Nick's eyes when he had encouraged her to explore this culinary shift. He had recognized something within her, a spark of possibility that she now feared extinguishing under her family's scrutiny. Determined not to back down, Grace gathered her ingredients with renewed vigor. Each chop of the knife felt like a statement of intent, a stand against the doubts that threatened to engulf her. Food should nourish not only the body, but also the spirit. The riot of colors and textures she arranged on the table transformed into more than a meal. It became a testament to resilience and adaptation. Yet, as she cooked, memories of her husband danced in her mind, reminding her of the evenings filled with laughter and the distinct, comforting aroma of his favorite dishes wafting through the air. Would her children forgive her for trying to dismantle those cherished memories? Her mind repeated their arguments like a relentless heartbeat. Would the traditions they held dear slip away like grains of sand? Finally, the hour arrived, and each ticking second felt like a drum roll echoing her anxieties. She set the table deliberately, placing each dish with care, as if they were each a bridge between her past and her present aspirations. This new meal was more than a desperate attempt to change. It was an anthem for all she dared to hope for: health, unity, and love. As her children entered, scanning the spread, their expressions shifted from curiosity to confusion. Grace's heart raced, an internal battle waged within. Would she let the moment slip away? Or would she seize this opportunity to lay down her vision? "Mom, what's this?" her oldest son asked, his eyebrows raised, eyes darting from the vibrant quinoa salad to the grilled egg and kale scramble with an unmistakable grimace. The question struck deep, and her previous resolve faltered momentarily. "Something new. I thought we could," she started, her voice steady but faltering under the weight of their critical stares. "Do we really need to change everything?" One daughter's voice was sharp, echoing the discontent swirling in the room. Doubt crept in, whispering seductive lies about her abilities as a mother. Grace felt the grip of fear close around her heart. Yet, the journal she had read whispered reminders of courage and conviction. She viewed the gaze around her not with criticism or disapproval, but as an opportunity to showcase a different possibility. "Please, just try it," she said softly, her voice thick with the weight of vulnerability and hope, "for what we might create together." As they hesitated, she felt something shift within her. The stakes felt perilously high, but in facing their resistance, she sensed the beginning of something profound and potentially transformational. Would they accept her invitation? Or would the barriers she feared keep them locked in the past? And just as the silence reached a suffocating crescendo, a thought jolted through her. She realized she was not just challenging them, but like her late husband, she was confronting her own fears, and that was a battle worth fighting. For the first time, tasting change felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Yet her journey had just begun. As her heart raced in anticipation, she braced herself for their response. Uncertainty and hope intertwining. The future of their family dinners teetered on this moment, and every fiber of her being knew that once the words were spoken, there would be no going back. Would this be a breakthrough or a breakdown? Only the next few moments held the key to that vital revelation. Grace inhaled deeply, ready to face the tide of potential conflict head-on, a warrior of her own culinary legacy, standing at the precipice of change. The silence lingered, heavy and still, as her children exchanged glances, gauging the atmosphere. Grace's heart raced, a symphony of conflicting emotions thundering within her chest. The colors of her meticulously prepared dishes appeared to blur, shadows creeping around the vibrant hues as the array of healthful offerings became a battleground she hadn't anticipated. Would they truly bond over this meal, or would old wounds open wider? "Mom, can we just have pasta and sauce like we always do?" Her son's voice cut through the tension, a plea for normalcy amidst the swirling chaos. Grace's spirits sank. The weight of their expectations pressed down like a physical presence. Yet, Another voice inside her urged her to stand firm. Change didn't ask for permission. Change was a reckoning. She looked at each of their faces, individual perspectives framed by years of tradition, and felt the stirrings of determination rise within her. I understand you love the old dishes, Grace began, choosing her words with care. But I want us to explore new flavors. This food can still remind us of the past, just in a different way. The tension in the room thickened. Grace's vulnerability, her desire for unity through change, hung in the air like a fragile thread. Would they snap it? Or find a way to weave it into a new tapestry of family memories? Mom, one daughter chimed in, eyebrows knitted with disbelief. Why do we need to change? We are fine the way we are. There it was, the familiar tether to comfort, the seductive allure of nostalgia, cloaked in resistance. Each word felt like an anchor, pulling the family deeper into their shared history, leaving Grace feeling somewhat unmoored in her newfound aspirations. But it was not despair she felt now. Instead, a flicker of enlightenment sparked in her mind. There was a way forward. Her late husband might rest deeper in the shadows of their past, yet perhaps the memories didn't have to reside there when the future beckoned brightly. Mom, we could burn everything we've come to like. Her youngest chimed in, still hopeful, still young enough to embrace changes with open arms rather than clenched fists. This voice of innocence ignited a shifting perspective within Grace. Or, she countered, feeling a steady pulse of conviction, we could blend those beloved flavors into something healthier, something that includes all of us in this new journey. She gestured to the dishes before them, feeling a rush of pride interspersed with anxiety. They were not casualties of her new vision. They could be allies. Grace took a calculated risk, feeling that the moment was ripe. Let us make a deal. She looked at them, daring the fear to fall away. If you try all the dishes tonight, I promise we can still have pasta tomorrow. One meal at a time. We can try others if you want. But tonight, we embrace this together. The room fell quiet again, each child processing the weight of her proposal. Would they resist this offering of collaboration? She stepped closer, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. Every new dish could be a memory. Just like the past meals, we can create stories with what's in front of us. Please, just give it a chance. Moments passed, and anxiety clawed at her insides. But also, the electric pulse of hope radiated from her. Here was a potential turning point. A chance not just for dinner, but for redefined connections. Fine, her oldest finally sighed, visibly rolling his eyes but unable to mask the slight glimmer of interest creeping into his demeanor. I'll try it, but only because you promised pasta tomorrow. As plates began to shuffle and laughter mingled with the aroma of freshly chopped herbs, Grace felt something shift. She saw her children navigate their resistance. It wouldn't be easy, but with each bite, with each murmur of curious response, they were entering a new dance of family. And as she served each dish, Grace sensed their expectations begin to crack, allowing the light of her vision to seep through. Still, the night held mysteries yet to unfold. New paths would demand new conversations. The taste of joy was bittersweet, echoing the complexities of change. As they shared stories from their days, something compelling stirred in Grace. Each flicker of acceptance fueled her own transformation. But beneath the surface, danger loomed. What if they were far from convinced? Or worse, this was merely a momentary truce. Tomorrow awaited, and with it, every unanswered question hung heavily in the air. Would they take another step together? The boundaries of the past and present tugged fiercely at her heart, urging her to confront the deeper fears of her culinary journey that lay ahead. Would this fragile hope hold strong, or would the inevitable clash of nostalgia and innovation rip their family apart? Just as the last fork clinked upon the plate, she felt the ground of certainty shift beneath her. What awaited her next was a mystery, and within its essence lay both a promise and a peril she could scarcely grasp. Grace awoke the next morning to a chorus of birds outside her window, each note a gentle reminder of the changes unfolding in her family. Breakfast, the most uncomplicated of meals, suddenly felt rife with potential. Would her children open their hearts again, or would familiarity shackle them to an outdated routine? As she brewed coffee, the rich aroma briefly soothed her racing thoughts. She had made a pact, and today, as choices, shared a weighty promise. How would the taste of yesterday's creations linger in their minds? Would they feel encouraged, or was she tapping into a volatile spring from which her resolve might flounder? Her children shuffled into the kitchen, their sleep-ridden faces a mix of curiosity and lingering resentment. The juxtaposition inside her stirred. They were drawn to comfort, yet she craved transformation. Each glance exchanged among them unveiled unspoken critiques of their mother's newfound aspirations. Grace inhaled deeply, summoning her inner tenacity. "Good morning, everyone." She forced a smile, grabbing a vibrant fruit salad she had prepared as a nod towards today's intentions. She hoped for a lighter tone, a bridge over the apprehension that trickled beneath. "So, are we ready for breakfast? Just a simple bowl of fruit to start." Her youngest approached warily, glancing at the colorful arrangement with hesitation. "What about pancakes?" "Pancakes can be tomorrow's surprise. I'd love to make them together," Grace suggested, her tone balancing optimism with firmness. She sensed the slight shift of their defenses, an acknowledgement of her effort to meet them halfway. The movements around the kitchen were sluggish but faded the longer the fruit sat on the table, enticing them with vibrant colors. Still, the worry gnawed at her. Questioning past decisions, Grace reflected on her deep-rooted fears of encouraging dissent amongst her children when it came to shared meals and experiences. She desired adventure, yet within her, an echo of doubt rang loud. Working in the quiet rhythm of preparing breakfast, she recalled the way her husband used to slip her love notes between grease-stained recipes. Memories wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, even as they stung. She couldn't hold on to those moments, realizing she had to build new pathways for their family that honored him, but also let in the light of a future they could fashion together. "Can you try the fruit salad?" She finally ventured, placing the dish into the epicenter of the table like a peace offering, inviting exploration. "Let us see what flavors we can create if we open our minds." Contemplative pockets of silence filled the room, encouraging the children into a space of tentative curiosity. Slowly, they began to serve themselves, seemingly unaware that each bite could represent a bridge towards acceptance. Grace's heart hammered in her chest, awaiting their reactions. Would they experience the expansion she envisioned? Beneath the shimmer of fruit, memories of family meals past surged into the foreground, wrapping her thoughts in delicious nostalgia while echoing the unease of the present. They had to move forward together or risk splintering beneath the weight of resistance. Her son's hesitant first couple of bites transformed into a muttering of "not bad" as the natural sweetness unfolded. Further unsure expressions melted into subtle smiles across her daughter's faces. Encouraged, Grace ventured forth. "We can talk about ingredients. What do you think about trying to mix in yogurt next time?" "Yogurt?" Her youngest repeated with intrigue, a hint of excitement creeping into her voice. The shift within him carved a path toward collaboration and dialogue. The journey wasn't free of peril. Familiarity lingered like an uninvited guest. Would each meal subsequently lead them further from old comforts or reinforce them? Every culinary endeavor could serve as an experimental ground, where traditions stretched and transformed, baking new memories with each simmering pot. Yet, they were far from done. The specter of resistance echoed persistently in her mind. Tomorrow's promise of pancakes still loomed a chance for true family engagement. Change would require effort, adaptability, and mastery over self-doubt. But each meal was an opportunity, each decision a step into the light. As breakfast settled into routine, Grace gathered her children's thoughts and concerns with gentle cues, crafting a space where their ideas could blossom. Could they venture forth and uncover culinary treasures? Would they trust her enough to experiment together? In that moment, she understood the risk of placing her vision above their comfort. It felt noble, yet also selfish. How intertwined were her needs for change with their needs for stability? This maze of emotions propelled her forward, as each response from her children gave life to a mosaic of possibilities yet unseen. Yet the foundation of doubt simmered, battering against her resolve. What if one heavy disappointment shattered their newfound momentum? Tomorrow's culinary endeavor loomed large, tense as a high wire. Each step a tightrope walk between nostalgia and innovation. The real challenge awaited, and with it, the opportunity to explore much deeper issues within the framework of their family ties. With tensions still simmering, the truth hung just out of reach. What awaited on the horizon? Would her next move rally the family closer, or plunge them back into familiar conflicts? The unknown loomed, and Grace had to ask herself, was she ready to confront whatever surprise lay in next ambitious decision? As the morning light filled the kitchen, Grace felt a renewed sense of urgency ripple through her. The success of breakfast hung in the air like an unfinished melody. Its sweet notes of tentative collaboration left her yearning for more evolution. Today wasn't merely about pancakes. It was a step in redefining the very core of their family. After her children dispersed for the day, Grace found herself alone with the dishes, each one heavy with implications. While scrubbing the plates, she replayed each moment from the breakfast table, searching for the secret ingredient that could sustain the momentum they had just built. What lay beyond pancakes? The thought hung tantalizingly in her mind, sparking a cascade of new ideas she hadn't dared to entertain before. Could they shift mealtime from mere sustenance to an exploration of flavors, cultures, and even identities? A vision began to blossom: a family cooking night, where each child could showcase their interests in the kitchen. Yet, an ice-cold wave of doubt washed over her. What if her vision was too ambitious? What if they resisted this next leap into uncharted territory? The ghosts of past failures flickered in her mind like shadows lingering at the edges of her resolve. She had seen her children recoil from changes and abandon any spark of creativity when it felt overwhelming. Yet, she had witnessed their willingness to engage in small victories. If she started small, perhaps she could coax them into bigger challenges without the threats she so often felt looming above them. With a pang of determination, Grace reached for her laptop and began researching diverse recipes, fascinated as she scrolled through vibrant images of global dishes. But as she delved deeper, she felt a peculiar mix of exhilaration and anxiety. What if she suggested a taco night inspired by their diverse school friends? Or a homemade sushi evening, where they could fill their roles with their favorite ingredients? Each option sang with the promise of creativity, but also echoed the unsettling fear of continued reluctance. She recalled a time when her husband had insisted on trying to recreate the painfully complex pad thai they had enjoyed during their honeymoon. The endless layers of ingredients danced around the table, turning the cooking process into a chaotic yet joyous memory that connected them more deeply. Could she rediscover that magic? Could she provide an ambience where laughter could drown out their skepticism? The plan began to take shape in her mind, layered with possibilities and threaded with the need for their voices to resonate within the meals. Still, the specter of resistance loomed large, a promise that they would push back against even the slightest bend in their comfort zone. The thought gnawed at her, but Grace steeled herself with a resolve she didn't know she possessed. That evening, when the children returned, Grace gathered them around the kitchen island, a space she created anew with laughter and prosperity in mind. "Guys, I've been thinking," she started, gauging their expressions for hesitation. "What if we had a family night? We could each pick a dish from a different part of the world to make together. How does that sound?" Her youngest's eyebrows knit together in confusion as her daughters exchanged skeptical glances, their subtle barriers of defense rising once more. The silence stretched thinner, and her heart raced as she sensed the weight of her invitation teetering on the edge of acceptance or dismissal. "A dish? What kind? Can we pick dessert?" Her oldest piped up, a flicker of enthusiasm breaking through the haze. Grace felt a surge of optimism. "Absolutely. We can have dishes and desserts. Your choices will be the day's adventures." As laughter bubbled to the surface, Grace's heart soared. It was only a small crack in the formidable wall of resistance, but it was a beginning. She had opened a door ready to usher in a storm of flavors and experiences. Yet as the discussion unfolded and enthusiasm ignited among her children, a new question gnawed at her. How deep do the roots of resistance run? Each attempt was a risk, each joy a precarious balancing act. Tomorrow, as they navigated the uncharted culinary waters, Grace had to ask herself if she could maintain their trust while challenging their stability. The thrill of change had barely begun to unveil itself, and with it, the awakening of never-before-seen depths within their family dynamic. Was she prepared for what would surface? What would their collective souls reveal as they chopped, mixed, and created a tapestry of culture? The anticipation stretched tightly through the air, infused with the promise of growth, yet saturated with the fear of loss. How far could they go before the weight of their past overpowered them? In the still evening, the house felt simultaneously safe and precariously poised. The stage was set for their culinary night, but her thoughts raced ahead what revelations awaited just beneath the surface of flour and simmering sauces. Grace woke the next morning with a swell of determination pulsating through her. Today was pivotal, a testing ground for the ideals she wanted to instill in her family. She navigated the morning routine with feverish enthusiasm. Her children were still nestled in their beds, but her mind moved at breakneck speed. All her apprehensions morphed into tangible plans, paintings brushed with hues of warmth, artistry, and exploration set in the kitchen. After breakfast, she spoke each word like it was the last piece of a puzzle. "I want us to try cooking together tonight the way we talked about." The morning's echo filled her spirit with both exhilaration and anticipation. The prospect of culinary collaboration hung like ripe fruit ready to be plucked. As the hours rolled toward evening, Grace caught herself organizing ingredients like a maestro preparing for a vibrant symphony. She moved through the kitchen with intention, setting the stage for creativity to flourish. She relished this moment. If she could ignite curiosity and enjoyment in them, it could reshape their entrenched habits. But as she arranged avocados, mini tortillas, and raw fish, a disquieting shadow crept in. What if the children were disinterested? What if they turned their backs on the very concept she hoped would bring them closer? She had seen their hesitation. They clung tightly to the familiar, the comfort of predictability: white bread with peanut butter, macaroni and cheese without deviations. The thought of pushing them beyond their culinary safe zones remained a source of anxiety. Could she break through that barrier? Was it feasible to allow the unfolding of creativity without scaring them back to safety? When the kitchen clock struck 6, she called her children to the expanse she had prepared. "Let us begin." Her voice was filled with a charisma she hoped would be contagious. Her first task, to encourage their fake enthusiasm. She split them into 2 teams. She would oversee her youngest, while the older girls took charge of the sushi assembly. The playful banter they erupted into, seeming colors of laughter, felt akin to bursts of fireworks she'd unknowingly longed for. Yet, rolling sushi was no easy task, with sticky rice fighting against dried seaweed, and their confusion quickly spiraled into irritation. Grace watched the tension begin to bubble in her daughter's expressions. Just as their excitement began to dwindle and morph into frustration, she stepped in. "Remember how we enjoyed the pad thai that evening?" The comparison activated a buried enthusiasm. "We can't give up. Creativity takes mistakes," she insisted, her voice a soothing balm. Would they embrace this sentiment, or would resentment fester? With a renewed glimmer in their eyes, they approached the task with newfound zeal. Grace smiled inwardly, recognizing the small victories hidden in those moments. She observed their tentative hands transform shaky motions into decisive rolls of sushi, garnished with pride. As they neared the completion of their culinary adventure, Grace realized she had stumbled upon a hidden talent for navigating not just recipes, but behavioral dynamics. The kitchen had become an arena for exploration where they practiced patience in slicing and rolling, where improvisation blossomed from accidents, and where the delicious aroma of success wafted through the air. Yet, as they set their culinary creations on the table, the immense weight of gratitude and happiness intertwined with an uncomfortable question. Was this merely a temporary shift? Would tonight's festivities translate to enduring change, or would they return to their predictable patterns tomorrow? With each bite they took, a flickering uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. They were engaged now, but how could she ensure their newfound enthusiasm would not fade like the dusky light falling outside? The children savored what they had created, each taste a celebration of labor and spontaneity. Yet, as laughter filled the room, Grace's heart carried the burden of tomorrow's challenges. She recognized the monumental task ahead: maintaining momentum, harnessing creativity, and fortifying trust amidst the proximity of ever-closer fears. Would she navigate the coming storm of creative dining without drowning in their storms of resistance? That evening, as the laughter subsided and their meal drew to a close, Grace found herself contemplating the pivotal role of their kitchen escapade in their family narrative. What remained, she realized, was the need to confront the roots of resistance. How deeply intertwined were their routines with the fabric of their identities that marked every meal before? What unsaid thoughts loomed beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge? Tomorrow loomed large with uncertainty, and the darkness of doubt felt tangible. But the aroma of promise mixed with simmered ambitions in that kitchen, urging her forward into uncharted miracle waters. Would she grapple with her own fears as they confronted theirs? The true culinary adventure had only begun. Morning light streamed through the kitchen window, casting soft rays that danced across the remnants of last night's culinary triumph. Grace looked around, taking in the scattered ingredients and half-finished dishes adorning the counter like pieces of a well-composed melody. But despite the warmth of success, a wave of self-doubt washed over her. The evening's exuberance felt fragile, and she wondered how easily it could all shatter under the weight of routine. With the children off to school, she brewed a cup of coffee, allowing its rich aroma to ground her thoughts. This was a time for reflection, a moment to strategize not just on how to sustain their newfound creativity, but also on ways to enhance her own growth as a parent. She flipped through her mental notebook, recalling conversations she'd had with friends about deepening family connections. They had always emphasized vulnerability and honesty as keys to developing strong relationships. Grace envisioned implementing those concepts, but a flicker of fear surged within her. What if sharing too much her insecurities, her past failures would only alienate her children? Yet the thought of being a perfect parent felt increasingly unrealistic. Perhaps the very act of revealing her struggles could create a bridge. As the clock ticked on, she resolved to transform her apprehensions into action. She would focus on one core value today: vulnerability. The idea was not entirely foreign to her. After all, she had stepped outside her comfort zone in the kitchen, and the results had been transformative. Now she needed to replicate that courage on a more emotional level. The school day passed slowly, anticipation coursing through her veins as she waited for her daughters to return home. In the quieter moments between tasks, her mind swirled with potential conversation starters. Would they be receptive to her honesty about her own apprehensions regarding food and identity? Would they find strength in knowing her own pursuit of joy had been far from linear? When they finally walked in, she branded her greeting with enthusiasm. "How was your day?" The words came easier than expected, their faces lighting up with tales from school, their energy palpable. After the usual chatter wound down, Grace decided it was time. "Girls, I want to talk about something important. Last night felt amazing, but it reminded me of how much I fear things changing of putting myself out there." She hesitated, feeling the weight of their gazes. "I want to be honest with you about the struggles I've faced. Being a parent isn't just about guiding you. It's about learning alongside you." A moment of silence hung in the air, thick with unspoken thoughts. Grace could see the flicker of confusion morphing into curiosity in their eyes. And then, slowly, something shifted. Her eldest daughter tentatively leaned forward, an opportunity forged in that small act of bravery. "Mom, I thought you had it all figured out, like you never struggled with cooking or being a parent." The words hung between them, turning the atmosphere electric. Grace smiled gently, warmth suffusing her heart. Here was the chance to cultivate an authentic dialogue. "I've had doubts, especially with cooking, but exploring those fears with you last night was the best choice I could make." The flicker of understanding between them expanded, sparkles of recognition bridging the gap between generations. This was not merely a heart-to-heart. It became a gateway for collaboration in future meals, not only in the kitchen, but in their lives as individuals. As the evening unfolded, they transformed a simple dinner into a family affair filled with laughter, imaginative recipes, and a plethora of memories in the making. Grace felt a burgeoning connection, an intimacy built not from perfection but from vulnerability. But just as pride welled within her, she felt it again, that nagging worry about tomorrow. Would the weight of expectations pull them back into complacency? The challenge loomed, sharper than knives on the cutting board. How could she ensure that her strategic vulnerability laid a strong foundation for lasting change? With a thrill of resolve, Grace set her sights on the next step in their journey. Perhaps a family meeting? a space where they could openly share their frustrations around food and structure together. The deeper she ventured into her own mindset, the more she understood that creating lasting change started with reinforcing their newfound connection. And in that moment, she knew the next evening would be critical. The canvas was not just her children's anymore. It was their family unit as a whole, and she had the brush in her hand. Drawing a deep breath, she felt the pulse of her action plan ignite. What would she uncover in their next gathering of creativity? As they cleared the table together, she couldn't help but anticipate a revelation waiting to surface. The next morning, the sunlight filtered through the kitchen window again, but this time, it brought with it a new energy, one laced with purpose and clarity. Grace set her coffee pot to brew, her mind already racing with possibilities for the family meeting she envisioned. This gathering would serve as a platform, a crucible for not just sharing frustrations, but for collectively imagining a new approach to their culinary adventures. With her daughters off to school, she spent the day preparing. The kitchen became her workshop. She gathered sticky notes, one for each idea swirling in her mind. Family meal planning, she penned, alongside cooking experiments and kitchen teachable moments. Each note represented an avenue to explore together, a foothold to foster creativity while reinforcing their shared bonds. As the hour of their meeting approached, a tinge of anxiety gripped her. What if her daughters weren't interested? What if, in their bustling lives filled with friends and schoolwork, they didn't see the value in this initiative? A knot of doubt twisted in her stomach. But then she thought back to the previous night, the warmth of sharing and laughter that had sparked between them as they cooked together. It had taken courage to open up, and now she had to channel that same bravery. Her strategic vulnerability had laid the groundwork. It was time to build on it. When her daughters returned home, Grace greeted them with an excited enthusiasm, a hint of nerves bubbling beneath her polished surface. "I've come up with an idea for our family meeting tonight." "What kind of idea?" her youngest asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. As Grace detailed her vision, she transformed her nervousness into a contagious energy that danced around the kitchen. She was met with nods and smiles, and an exhilarating surge of relief washed over her. Perhaps this was the shift, the ongoing evolution she sought, not only for her family meals but for their entire dynamic. That evening, they gathered around the kitchen table. Grace felt an electric anticipation crackle in the air as she began to share her thoughts. This isn't just about food. It's about how we connect as a family. I want us to explore our frustrations together and discover new ways to make cooking an adventure, not a chore. Her eldest daughter leaned back, crossing her arms thoughtfully. But what if we just don't like some of the combinations? Like, can we skip on the pineapple and jalapeno pizza? Grace chuckled, recognizing a familiar tone of skepticism mixed with hope. Absolutely. This is a space to voice those fears. Your dislikes can guide us. We can find ways to make it work for everyone. The meeting transformed into a lively brainstorming session, filled with laughter and creative input as they exchanged ideas on tastes, ingredients, and their culinary preferences. Grace's heart raced with joy. Each suggestion from her children added layers to the dialogue, evolving the concepts of vulnerability into collaborative teamwork. As their ideas flowed, Grace realized something critical. This wasn't just about food. It was about expression. Sharing preferences offered a safe haven for her daughters to voice their evolving identities. Could there be a better way to reinforce their growing independence? Just as the conversation hit its rhythm, a question slipped from her lips, one she had not fully prepared for. What about the times when you feel overwhelmed? How can we address those moments together? The room fell silent. Grace could almost see the gears turning in their minds. Then her youngest spoke. "Sometimes I hide how I feel because I don't want to upset anyone. But if we share honestly, like you did, maybe that won't happen." The acknowledgement reverberated throughout the room as understanding passed silently between them. Grace's heart soared. Here was the meat of their discovery. A commitment not just to cooking, but to forthright communications on feelings and expectations. As they wrapped up the meeting, she felt incredibly invested in this orchestrated vulnerability. The kitchen would become a canvas for further revelations, an evolving entity reflecting their growth as individuals. But as the night stretched into early hours, a flutter of apprehension gripped her. Would their newfound openness withstand the external pressures of daily routines? Had they really forged an insightful path, or was this merely another fleeting moment in the day-to-day chaos? With a newfound determination, Grace pinned the date down as a milestone and entry into their family diary of transformation. Tomorrow would introduce new possibilities, but what challenges lurked beneath the surface? The questions loomed. What unforeseen conflicts would arise as they continued their journey into vulnerability and creativity together? Grace sensed she had only scratched the surface of something profound. The dawning of awareness opened a world of struggle, and she was eager to uncover what lay ahead in her family's story. The next day, an undercurrent of excitement buzzed in Grace as her daughters rifled through backpacks and prepared for their respective school days. Her early morning routine had shifted. Now, each step was infused with anticipation. The family meeting had sparked something already. She could feel it in the way her daughters conversed with one another, in the questions they posed. Each moment held the promise of further exploration. Grace made her way to the kitchen, energized as she recalled the vibrant ideas exchanged the previous night. Today was the perfect time to transform chaotic breakfast habits into another collaborative experience. While cooking, she pondered how to introduce family-friendly dishes that could be the signature bond that she hoped would cultivate a valued connection. The morning loomed, filled with the mundane tasks of preparing meals and overseeing homework, yet a new lens colored her perception. Grace seized the opportunity to incorporate some of the suggestions discussed during their meeting. She prepared a breakfast smoothie, inviting her daughters into the mix. "How about you two pick one fruit and one veggie for the smoothie today?" The girls exchanged skeptical glances, the gravity of choice weighing heavily on them. Eyes wide, her youngest furrowed her brow. "But what if we choose something gross, like spinach?" The question lingered like a faint echo, reminding Grace of her own hesitations. What if it's not about the taste, but about the adventure of trying something new? Grace replied, keeping her voice light while masking the inner doubts swirling within. This endeavor was as much about creating memorable experiences as it was about the food they consumed. An hour later, the table buzzed with chatter about possible food combinations that were both humorous and unexpected. In sharing their fears, the family cooperated in imaginative creations. Grace felt layers of tension unravel. They were leaning into the vulnerability they had discussed, fully immersing themselves in new patterns of communication. As her daughters began brainstorming potential recipes for dinners the following days, Grace took a step back, introspective. Her daughters' laughter enlivened the kitchen, yet a different knot formed in her stomach. What if they were too eager? She reflected on her own past reluctances to explore unconventional ideas. With that realization came a pang of concern. Would they be able to handle the disappointment when things didn't go as planned? Following their lively discussion, they sat down to enjoy their breakfast masterpiece. It was bright and colorful, almost like a painting, but Grace couldn't help but notice her eldest's lack of enthusiasm. "You don't seem as excited as usual. What is up?" Grace asked gently, her eyes probing beyond the external. "I don't know, it feels like we're always experimenting. And what if we fail?" Her daughter's voice carried underlying apprehension, and Grace's heart sank. This moment felt pivotal, revealing layers of doubts that were quietly festering beneath the surface. Grace paused, the gravity of her daughter's words resonating within. "Experiments sometimes lead to messes, and most often they teach us something valuable. But can we commit to treating failures as just another step in our journey?" The table fell silent, the weight of this question hanging in the air. Grace envisioned how the burdens of failure might influence her daughter's perception, not just about cooking, but about life's challenges. In that moment, a deep realization burst forth. These kitchen experiments were a microcosm of life. Each attempt would inevitably shape their character resilience in the face of adversity, creativity despite disappointment. It began to dawn on her that the messy process of cooking could forge pathways for her daughters, echoing crucial life lessons. Once breakfast concluded, Grace pinned discussions of fears and hopes from breakfast in the family journal, documenting unexpected insights. The journal became their family's evolving narrative, every meal a chapter, every experiment a growth moment. Later, as she watched her daughters depart for school, she faced the day with a renewed sense of purpose. They had started to redefine their narrative, But how would their realities unfold when they faced true challenges? Would they remember to embrace the lessons of the kitchen, or would the world outside them drown those lessons under expectations? Grace sighed, a mix of pride and anxiety swirling within her. Today marked another step, a deeper exploration into their growth. But she wondered, could she maintain this momentum? What conflicts awaited in the coming days? And would she, too, have the resolve to confront them as courageously as they had? As the sunsets turned golden, Grace reflected on the evolution of their culinary journey, a testament to her resolve and their collective spirit. This evening marked another family cooking night, a ceremony they had all embraced with hesitant enthusiasm. They had discovered the importance of meeting each other amidst the chaos of change. Each meal was not simply about the food, but a canvas for connection and affirmation. That afternoon, Grace curated the ingredients based on ideas hatched in earlier culinary meetings. She hoped to present a taco night infused with their favorite flavors while respecting their likes. The invitation to share responsibility kindled excitement in her daughters as they arrived home, eager to dive into the preparations. Tonight's theme is doing it together, planting the roots for our family traditions, she announced, her voice radiating warmth. As they gathered around the kitchen island, her daughters animatedly exchanged ideas. For every ingredient suggested, laughter erupted. This was their new rhythm. But just as they started, Grace observed a shadow cross her eldest's face, a telltale sign that something resided beneath the surface. "What is bothering you?" Grace gently probed, keenly aware of how the handle of vulnerability had begun to unlock their conversations. "I just feel like every meal is a risk. What if we don't make it work?" Her daughter's voice trembled with vulnerability. In that moment, Grace felt the familiar coil of her own fears. "What if we embrace the unpredictable?" she suggested. "Each kitchen mishap is just another layer of our story. Wouldn't it be exciting to explore those together?" Her daughter momentarily faltered, the weight of her fears softening, replaced by an inkling of curiosity. Grace seized that glimmer, delighted by the opportunity to reshape their conversation. "Let us celebrate our failures," she declared. "For every burnt tortilla or poorly seasoned taco, we'll jot it down and honor it as part of our educational adventure." An unexpected cheer erupted. The promise of laughter and shared disappointment shifted the dynamics in their kitchen space. Each time a meal faltered, they would have something to learn and bond over rather than retreating into silence. As they crushed avocados, assembled tacos, and diced tomatoes, Grace observed a palpable shift among them. Frames of uncertainty gave way to playful interactions. Her daughters, equipped with spatulas and bowls, began crafting new tastes, eager to infuse their identities into dinner. Each bite was seasoned not just with flavor, but with their newfound resilience. Grace caught glimpses of joy in her daughters' eyes as they relished the outcome of their collective efforts. They feasted on laughter as much as the tacos, creating memories woven with gratitude. However, as the evening unfolded, a deeper trepidation visited her thoughts. What about outside opinions? Would they yield to the pressures of change and risk regression back into fear? "You know, this is more than just food," Grace articulated, gathering a moment of connection. "This is about being brave enough to taste life's adventures. We are creating not just meals, but a narrative where you can succeed, fail, and try again together." The honesty resonated deeply in her daughters. Something had clicked, a resonance that fortified their understanding of the larger lesson nestled within their culinary endeavors. By the end of their dinner, Grace felt a sense of satisfaction smooth over her. They had survived yet another meal. But more importantly, they had created a shared narrative filled with laughter and learning, the ultimate testament to their evolving bond. As her daughters began clearing the table, Grace caught a glimpse of the family journal. They had recorded each meal, each lesson steeped in vulnerability. "What if we add a section for future meals?" Grace proposed. They collectively brainstormed a list of dishes, each proposal tethered to their interests and tries. Hoping for further connections outside culinary exploration, Grace introduced the idea of a family game night, a chance to provide further space for vulnerability while again emphasizing the significance of joy found within trials. With renewed excitement, Grace knew this was an essential route. Just as she planted each seed in the kitchen, She had cultivated a tiny garden of resilience in their household, fostering a homeward compass for exploration. Yet doubts lurked still. Would they value these experiences when faced with social expectations? How long could they remain steadfast against outside pressures? The night came to a close, and the comfort of warmth enveloped Grace. Each conversation was a triumph progress which she nurtured with deliberate precision. But as they settled into night-worn routines, she felt the stirring of uncertainty again. The kitchen, a vibrant tapestry, stood as a repository of their growth. It had become a sanctuary for exploration, and as Grace closed her eyes, she contemplated tomorrow as potential. What awaited beyond their fortified laughter? Would they venture further into the depths of creativity and authenticity, or would they find themselves retreating towards familiar habits? The challenge was real, but so too was her commitment to face whatever lay ahead. With a soft smile, she dared to embrace the uncertainty, for it was there that growth and opportunity intertwined, whispering the promise of reaching undying heights together as a family.